Guy's getting nasty looking.
Okay, folks. We're ready to go. Good evening, everyone. I'm Councilwoman Joanne Ryan. I'm calling the Committee on Finance regular meeting to order Tuesday, July 6, 2021. It is 5:31 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read the roll?
Chairwoman Ryan?
Present.
Councilman Narducci?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Castillo?
Present.
Councilwoman Anthony? Councilwoman Anthony?
You're muted.
Present.
Thank you,
Councilman
Councilman.
Taylor?
Here.
We have five present.
Thank you very much. Let the record reflect that we are joined this evening by Council Pro Tempore Espinal. Councilman Goncalves is with us. We have our solicitor, Jeff Dana, is with us. We have Councilman Correa, I think, Councilman Correa is with us. Okay. All right, let's start, I believe, by waiving the reading of items 1 through 4, the budget articles, and enter a substitution on substitutions 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. May I have that motion?
Second
Made,
motion.
Madam Chair.
Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by Councilman Narducci. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. We have amended or substitutions for the 4 budget articles before us this evening. Madam, excuse me, Madam Clerk, have you posted on the substitutions on Confluence?
Yes, I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, wonderful. What I'd like to do is start this evening with our solicitor, Jeff Dana. If I could, actually, why don't we swear everyone in that's going to testify? How about, let's do that, Madam.
Sure. All those testifying, right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, help you God?
I do.
I do.
State your name and titles for the record.
Lawrence J. Mancini, Chief Financial Officer, City of Providence.
Crystal Lindbergh, Deputy Finance Director for the City of Providence.
Jeffrey Dana, City Solicitor for the City of Providence.
Thank you all. Is that it? Thank you all, and welcome this evening. I'd like to start with our solicitor, Jeff Dana. If you could kindly just answer a few questions for us to begin or to start off this discussion. Have you received a letter from the Department of Revenue challenging the appropriateness of the public hearing that we held on the matter of the budget articles?
So, Madam Chairman, while a letter was not sent to me directly from the Department of Revenue, the letter that was sent to you and fellow council members as well as to the administration was forwarded to me, and I have reviewed it.
Okay. Can you advise us, is it your position that we can proceed with this meeting and levy a tax legally?
Yes, I can, and I'd be happy to go into more detail if you'd like.
I would like. Please, comment.
So, the State Department of Revenue, through the letter that you referenced, has called into question the validity of the recent public hearing on tax rates. The letter did not articulate a specific objection, but generally objected to publishing notice of the proposed tax rates prior to approval by the Department of Revenue, and in the letter, it cited as its authority Rhode Island General Law 44-35-6. The form prescribed by Rhode Island General Law 44-35-6, which is titled Notice of Proposed Property Tax Rate Change, requires that the city list the amount proposed to be levied, the proposed tax rate, and include the following statement. The above property tax estimates have been computed in a manner approved by the Rhode Island Department of Revenue. Now, the city provided the Department of Revenue with its estimated tax levy, tax rate, and supporting documentation in accordance with the state 44-35-6, as well as the applicable Division of Municipal Finance regulations. The Department of Revenue does not appear in the letter to be objecting to any particular estimated levy calculation. I'll note, and this is very relevant, that the city is not proposing a tax rate change from last year. The Department of Revenue has not requested additional supporting documentation, and it approved our computation last year, utilizing the same tax rate we're utilizing this year. It's not changed, and the only minor fluctuations to the estimated levy are due to routine fluctuations in the assessment roll. With our tax rate or our estimated levy, which would preclude the Department of Revenue from approving the city's levy this year. While not articulated in its letter, but however, based on previous communications with the Department of Revenue, it appears that it takes objection to a proposed budget item in the city's budget and not the levy. A separate statute, a statute different from 44-35-6, deals with budgets and proposed budgets. And the only authority that the Department of Revenue has under 44-35-6 is to approve the methodology for calculating standards for tax rate change notifications found within that section of the state law. While the city, under state law, must adopt a balanced budget, if a particular expense line item increases, the levy need not necessarily increase. So at this stage, the level of authority that the Department of Revenue seems to be claiming is more in line with municipalities subject to a fiscal overseer or budget commission. And it's not the case here. So for those reasons, our law department, the city law department, is advising you that the public hearing on tax rates on the levy that occurred last week is compliant with all applicable state law. Hopefully that responds appropriately to your question, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. That was a great explanation. I appreciate that. So we are relying on that and upon your guidance to move forward this evening. Is that your recommendation that we've complied? You've basically stated that the public hearing was in compliance. We're moving forward this evening with discussing the budget where your recommendation is we're okay to move forward. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Councilman Anthony, you have your hand up.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. I was just, Mr. Solicitor, has there been any communication with the Department of Revenue since the letter came out last week? I just was wondering if there's been any clarification or any communication between, your department and Department of Revenue, or if it's taken place since the letter.
So there has been communication between myself and a senior counsel for the state, and we anticipate we have had prior discussions with the Department of Revenue that involved senior attorneys from both the law department and counsel to the Department of Revenue. It is my expectation that within the next couple of days, there will be follow-up discussions that involve attorneys both for the state and the city.
And may I just do a follow-up question very briefly?
Yes, please.
Thank you. If the worst case scenario, if they do say that we're not in compliance, what happens then?
Well, I think, so again, where based on our analysis of the law, they don't actually have the authority at this stage to claim that we can't move forward with the levy. Once a budget is passed, and the state law with respect to budgets also does provide them a remedy to block us from moving forward with the budget. As I said, the city, all municipalities must pass a balanced budget, and subsequent to the budget being passed, the city's finance department will provide a summary. I believe the law requires within 30 days, a summary to the Department of Revenue, and if it's determined, if they agree the budget is balanced, then the state and city will have to work that out. But in terms of the stage we're at right now, passing the levy, moving forward with the levy so that the city is legally able to send out tax bills, and passing a budget so that that process can commence. We believe that that's just, I suppose in theory, the state could request that a court prohibit us from moving forward. I imagine that's unlikely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, committee members, council members on that topic? Okay, thank you very much, Solicitor Dano. We appreciate your guidance on this matter. With that, I'd like to ask Chief Financial Officer Lawrence Mancini if you could speak to the amendments or the substitutions that are before us. I know that you've worked very diligently with the council finance team on a number of matters, but I'd like you to present the budget in your opinion on the budget at this point that's before us. Oh, can't hear you. You're muted, Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. Good evening. And may I say, Madam Chair, the testimony provided by the solicitor is testimony that I'm aware of and that I concur with as we move forward in this process. I know that I have been asked on previous occasions of the status and the position of the city budget predicated upon the public hearing that was held last week. And I went forward with that public hearing, and I gave on record the administration's full support of the budget that's now before this committee. And this evening, Madam Chair, it's my intention to go through the budget and highlight those changes by the appropriation ordinances mostly, and generally by the summary of accounts associated with salaries, benefits, supplies, services, and capital, as is the case when the appropriation ordinance is complete. There are 4 ordinances that have been held in committee, Madam Chair, since they were filed by the administration. They include the levy ordinance, which was a no tax rate change, and that continues to be a no tax rate change to the city's levy, relying upon either the natural expansion of taxes and revenue or changes in collection practices, including collection rate that has been enhanced. In addition to that, there's the appropriation ordinance, which is a schedule of revenues and expenditures. And then there is the so-called classification and compensation ordinances. The last 2 are the documents and ordinances that govern the list of positions by department and the appropriate rate of compensation. If I may, Madam Chair, I'll focus my attention on a summary of changes associated with the appropriation ordinance. And that appropriation ordinance is before the committee. And I have given, the Finance Department has shared with the Internal Auditor and the Treasurer this day the latest version as changes were being reviewed and being proofed, if you will, proofed mathematically as well as grammatically and also operationally. And so we have a red line version as well. I don't know if the committee has had them already introduced as new exhibits, and if not, Madam Chair, would you prefer to do that?
We entered these. This is a substitution, correct? The document that was provided to us today and distributed to my committee members and entered earlier by our vote of the committee are substitutions so that we can discuss them and we have them before us. The appropriations is actually 2A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I apologize because I wasn't on the call
That's
yet.
okay.
So thank you very much. Okay.
No worries.
So if you look at the red line version, Madam Chair, and let's start with the summary of revenue accounts, you'll see that there are some changes where you see a line stricken through the number, that was the number that was submitted upon the proposed budget, and the amount that follows directly below is now the substituted amount that we are requesting. I should tell you in total, Madam Chair, the entire budget from the proposed budget has a reduction overall of $371,388 through a combination of revenues and expenditures. Starting with the revenues, you'll see that tax revenues have gone down slightly in the tax revenue account. Much of that was due to further certification under the homestead program. That conversation was held regularly before your committee. And also a change to the good in the collection rate, given the city's widely acclaimed tax collection ability. Next, you'll see federal and state revenue and reimbursements. That amount has gone up by an amount that appears at $96,028,423. Departmental revenues have declined. The new amount is $26,961,409. And then following that, fines and forfeitures remain the same. Interest income remains the same. Rental income remains the same. And a slight change in other revenues by less than 100,000 at $30,609,993. And the transfers from other funds remain the same at $26,717,352. The grand new total of all revenues to the city budget is $539,566,355, and that represents a change of $371,388 decrease in the change in revenues. Also, Madam Chair, members of the committee, if I may continue on that page, Section 2 now has a provision, Madam Chair, and I believe it's important that I read this into the record, particularly following the testimony of the solicitor at your request, and this governs itself appropriately surrounding school and school appropriations. And if I may, Madam Chair, read Section 2. The city has appropriated $130,046,611 to the Providence School Department for the fiscal year 2022. Pursuant to Section 803 of the Home Rule Charter, all payments made by the state or federal governments to the city of Providence for the support of public schools, together with tuition fees earned by the school department and all miscellaneous receipts of the school department now available to it for expenditure in accordance with the provisions of state law, shall be paid over and credited to the school fund by the city treasurer. Any surplus resulting from excess revenue receipts over estimates and unencumbered balances of appropriations at the end of any fiscal year shall revert to the general fund current operating surplus account and shall be subject to such reservations or other disposition as the city council may direct. Madam Chair, I had that language reviewed by the Office of the City Solicitor, one of the associate solicitors, and I shared that language with the city treasurer and the acting chief of staff, as well as the internal auditor and the finance director, and all agreed that this was appropriate language in light of recent developments associated with school and school appropriations. Continuing on Section 3, Madam Chair, you'll see that that was a change of form. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Chief.
Yes.
May I interrupt you?
Yes.
Just a moment, please. I believe you
Sure.
misspoke on relative to the section you were referring to. Just for the record, if I might have heard you incorrectly, the section is 808. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, it appears as 803, pursuant to Section 803 of the Home Rule Charter. And then,
I can jump, if I may, I can jump in, and that's language that was sent directly from my office, and that's a typo. It is Section 808. So Mr. Mancini was
Okay.
reading of our mistaken typo, but the language is directly from 808.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
sir.
the language in the sub 2A, references in section 2, it references section 808. That is the appropriate section.
That is correct.
Okay, perfect. Okay, please continue, Chief.
So, Madam Chair, that amount was previously stated, and the amount that's now been removed was $4,897,350. Moving right along between sections 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, there are no changes from the original proposed submission, right through the end of sections 12 as it appears there. And then the changes that do begin, Madam Chair, members of the committee, will begin with the various summary of accounts associated with the budget as they appear in their numerical sequential order. Account number 101-101, Mayor's Office, there are no changes in that budget. Account number 101-105, Law Department, there were changes at the salary lines and that total appears as the new total is $6,352,156. And those changes, Madam Chair, were meant to make a provision for additional staffing associated with an every home coordinator, less any grant funding that may occur in the Office of Solicitor, which was an important position that was needed upon review. Moving to section 101-201, the Finance Administration, there were no changes from the original submitted budget. Moving to page 4, City Collector, page 10, account number 101-205. There's a change in salaries. This change had to do with longevity as required by both ordinance and by bargaining unit contract that was not included in the original budget. It was an item that was missed. This is a correction in that category. Account unit 101-207, Assessor, no changes at this time based on the original submission. Neither were there changes in 101-208, Board of Tax Assessment Review, and likewise no changes in Account Unit 101-901, Office of the Recorder of Deeds. The grand total changes in that category the new total now is $8,725,834 versus the original $8,701,561. If I may, Madam Chair, moving along with Information Technology, Account Unit 101-204, there were changes in salaries. This change was meant to include the funding for a GIS manager and an IT project associate. These positions have been deemed to be vital in light of the most recent activity that goes on in many of the corporate American and government associated with compromising outside actors, if you will. And there was a need to recognize that as we move forward. That represents those changes in salaries. The new total for that department is $4,453,660,000. Next is Account Unit 101-212, Personnel. There were changes in personnel associated with the following, Madam Chair. It was meant to move benefits from that department to a new division of government known as the Department of Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. We have heard a lot about activities associated with social justice and diversity. The administration, working collaboratively with the council, I believe, have recognized that, and our city's HR department have made suggested and recommended changes to its positions, and this will represent those changes of benefits and or positions associated with the so-called Department of Equity, Inclusion, and Benefits. The new total there is $2,624,560. That's a reduction as those benefits are taken out of the HR department, and they will be moved to that new unit known as Department of Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. That rounds out those changes at $2,624,560. Moving to public safety associated with budget number 101-301, Office of the Commissioner of Public Safety. No changes in the budget. Account Unit 101-302, Police. There are changes in benefits and services. The most noted is that there will be $66,000 added to the police legal fund. This amount was missed on the proposed budget. It was not included. It is a contractually required collective bargaining item that is included for legal fees. Also, we added additional funding for the police academy recruitment. While the academy will not be held, these are expenses associated with the recruitment portion of advertising and the various initial steps of recruiting for a police academy. That's the reflection of those two line items in police. In Account Unit 101-303, Fire.
May I just have a question? I'm so sorry.
Go right ahead.
Okay,
Councilwoman Anthony.
just because I know we're running through this, but I just don't want to have to come back. How much was allocated for the police recruitment, academy recruitment? I just couldn't tell.
$48,500.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Anthony. Please continue, Chief.
As we move to fire, 101-303, the salary line has decreased, Madam Chair, as the administration has made a decision not to fund the position of fire captain EMS. The position has been unfilled for the past several years. It was due to internal staffing associated with the EMS and rescue runs where one of the personnel members of the department was doing both jobs, and we hope that we can continue with that process, and if not, we will probably have to revisit that sometime later in the year. But for the time being, a determination was made with the consent of all parties that we would not fill, or we will not fund that position this year. While we do allow it, we do leave it as allowed but unfunded. Also, Madam Chair, members of the committee, dominantly based on the administration's decision, we are removing funding for the next fire academy at the amount of $300,000. That's coming out of that line item. That's why the number now is $82,401,200. You'll see the reduction in those categories. The next category under public safety is communications, account code 101-304, no changes. The next one is emergency management, 101-907. There are no changes there. And then that wraps up the public safety department, and you'll see a decrease overall in that department. Moving to the Department of Planning and Development, there is a slight change in services. Madam Chair, members of the committee, a couple of $1,000s in services. You'll see the new total there as a slight increase. Moving to the Office of Economic Opportunity, no changes in that budget, 101-909. Moving to the Department of Public Works, account number 101-305, Traffic Engineering, no changes. Account number 101-501, Public Works Administration, no changes. Engineering and Sanitation, account number 101-502, no changes. Account number 101 on page 7, account number 101-506, Environmental Control, no changes. Account unit 101-508, Highway, no changes. Account unit 101-510, Snow Removal, no changes. Account unit 101-511, Sewer Construction, no changes. Account number 101-515, Garage and R&M Equipment, no changes. And finally, within Public Works, account number 101-516, Parking Administration, there are no changes there. The entire Public Works budget remains intact as proposed, no changes. Moving to, at the bottom of page 7, Recreation, account unit 101-601, slight changes in supplies expenses. Those changes were basically to add food and concessions for movie nights in the park, an activity that the Parks Department has demonstrated has been well received by the public and keeping our youngsters actively engaged in park and recreation activities. Very slight change in that budget. That was budget number 101-601. Moving to page 8, Recreational Seasonal. You'll see a change in employee benefits increase, and those changes were due to an update in the cost for FICA based upon the increase to a $15 an hour minimum wage mandate by the city in collaboration with both the administration and city council. That reflects that change in that budget. That rounds out the changes in recreation, both full-time and seasonal. Moving to Parks budget, 101-702, there are some changes in employee benefits and salaries associated with a shifting, Madam Chairman of the committee, basically shifting, realigning the salaries and duties of folks who work in neighborhood parks division and moving it to the Roger Williams Park division. It's basically a one-for-one change, just moving them over from one division to the other, and you'll see that has similar changes when we get to it. So those changes that appear in benefits and salaries are merely a shifting employees to another designated division and have a reduction on one and an equal increase to the other. Forestry Services, 101-703, no changes. Zoological Services, 101-706, no changes. 101-707, Botanical Greenhouse, no changes. 101-708, Rogers Park Services, changes equal to the change associated with Neighborhood Park Services. Again, a realignment or a better alignment, if you will, of personnel and positions. And then lastly, the Office of Superintendent of Parks, 101-709, no changes. And the final one under the Parks direction is North Burial Ground, 101-710, no changes in that budget. Moving to the Department of Inspection and Standards, 101-401, Building Administration. There are salary changes there that are slight increase. This was designed, Madam Chair, over the past few years. We've had changes in alignment and organizational structure of the Department of Inspection Standards. This was designed to both attract and retain quality licensed personnel in many of the divisions of the Department of Inspection Standards, and to make those wages highly competitive to do so. So you'll see some modest changes in salaries. This is done with the approval of both bargaining unit as well as the city's HR department, and it became what we would deem to be a necessity in order to not only recruit but to retain quality licensed personnel in all of the divisions of inspection and standards. And you'll see that through and through in all those divisions, modest changes that call for changes in many cases no greater than $5,000, in some cases $10,000 amongst two or three employees. With that, Madam Chair, you'll see all of the appropriate changes, modest as I have said earlier, in those line items, and sometimes it may be just a change of interdivisional changes moving personnel from one to the other. That rounds out inspection and standards. As we move to public property, Account Unit 101-1801, changes in salaries associated with project manager. They're basically reducing the funding for 2 laborers and 1 maintenance tech 2. And then we're going to be funding a capital project manager, which will be offset by opera funds as well as CIP funding in the amount of $123,947. That's a savings to the budget. So we'll see those changes in the public property budget as it is before you. Moving to city courts. No changes in municipal court 101-106. Probate court 101-107, no change. Housing court 101-110, no change. They stay intact. Human services 101-1309, no changes to the housing authority. In para 101-1311, no changes there. Moving to page 11. As you look at the various, in many cases, the non-departmental, the legal cities and towns, that did not change, 101-1319. Moving down to the Department of Human Relations, 101-906, no changes. Moving down further to Arts, Culture, and Tourism, 101-916, small change in supplies. It was a reduction. I'm sorry. It was an increase of $10,000, and that was associated with additional funding for food and concessions. Once again, to join with the Department of Recreation to sponsor events throughout the summer, movies in the park. Moving to Human Services, account number 101-917. No change in that budget. That rounds out the so-called Human Services departments in total. Moving to the miscellaneous. Account number 101-903, Vital Statistics, no changes. Account number 101-904, Board of Campuses, no changes. Account unit number 101-905, Bureau of Licenses, no changes. And that rounds out the miscellaneous. With due respect, moving to the City Council. Council member budgets, there was a change in services upward, and Madam Chair, that change had to do with bringing the miscellaneous account to a level that was equal to the 2021 budget, and that was by agreement of all parties, including the administration. We saw fit to that, as the council service budget has provided great benefits throughout its constituencies. Also, at the city clerk's office, Madam Chair, changes in salaries. This is to reflect a change to fund an additional deputy clerk first by correspondence and agreement with the city council affiliates and administration. There was agreement on that, and given the great work that's done in the city clerk's office, if I may, Madam Chair, we saw fit to promote and represent that change. Also in account unit 101-209 Treasury, no changes. City Council 101-910 City Council Administration, there was changes there, Madam Chair. And these were changes that had to do with various assorted changes within the administration ranks of the City Council office. They were presented to the City Council, they were presented to the administration, they were vetted by the city's personnel director and personnel department. They fell within the range of acceptable changes, and the administration has embraced it and accepted those changes. Moving forward to account number 101-911, Office of the Internal Auditor, no changes. Moving forward again, 101-913, Archives, no changes. And that rounds out City Council and City Council related activity. Moving to the non-departmental. Non-departmental general fund employee benefits, this would include all of the various benefits associated with medical and contributions therein. There was a reduction in those changes, Madam Chair, of down to $132,986,971. Heat, light, and power, no change. That's account number 101-01803. Grants, commissions, and miscellaneous, that's account number 101-1400, no change there. Ceremonies, that's account number 101-1500, remains at 9,030. Debt service. The debt service account was increased by an amount that was comparable to the change in the school appropriation. It is our ability to manage the debt service account and any capital and capitalized interest, and we saw fit to make that change to allow for that to handle debt service payments this year while leaving the debt service interest reserve or the capitalized interest reserve account intact. And that's the reason for the change in that account. Workers' compensation, 101-227, no change. Benefits, 101-800, no change. And finally, Madam Chair, that rounds up all of the changes associated with the appropriation. Once again, for the summary, it is a net reduction from the original proposed budget of $371,388 based upon the changes in revenue and an equal amount on the expenditure side. And Madam Chair, if I may say for the record, a lot of good work went into this calculations and computation on all parts of everyone working with the budget process, including all of your council advisors. And I'm pleased to say that the finance department, working with them, was able to satisfy the needs of the city budget while providing a balanced budget and a budget that is sensible. And certainly, as I said in the public hearing, we certainly would request your approval on the committee.
Thank you very much, Chief Mancini. And I do very much appreciate the collaborative nature of this budget, so thank you for stating that. I'd like to ask our Chief of Staff, Jim Lombardi, to opine on the matters before us. I think you've got an item that you noticed a variance in, or an item that wasn't appropriately referenced.
Sure. So, if I may, Madam Chair, the red line version had a few omissions from the full version, and if I may just go through them, I think there were just omissions. If you go to the Office of Economic Opportunity.
They're not going to find it
On the red line version.
Okay. On the red line version, page 6, is that?
Yeah, I'm working on a different one. Yes.
Please continue.
Okay, sorry.
So page 6 of the red line version.
As Chief Mancini was testifying to, there is a new department, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging, and that's a new department. So that there should be a new department, 101-919, Department of Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. The employee benefits are $102,948. Salaries are $188,444. Services are $5,472. Supplies are $500. The department total is $297,364.
Okay.
So there are.
What else?
All right. So if we go to the Public Property Department, and again, I'm using a different version. So the unredlined version is correct. Just that when the red line version was done, I assumed there was just a few omissions. I want to be as accurate as possible, Madam Chair.
Okay, continue.
So if you notice, I think that's on your page 10.
Is it 10? I've got 13.
Public property.
Public property is 10.
So the total,
Page 10.
you can look right on it. It says that the total is $8,022,195, but the total on the next line item is $8,046,972. So the correct number is $8,022,195. They just didn't correct that bottom number.
So everything in public property 101-1801 is correct. It's the bottom line number.
Correct.
Should be 8022195.
Correct.
Okay. That's on page 10. What else?
And going to...
Madam Chair, I see that and I agree with that. I see that.
Okay, thank you.
And in moving on to the last page,
13? 13?
yes.
Page 13, folks.
General total for non-departmental expenses, so it's the second to the last, well, it's $244,148,000. The correct number is $243,531,213.
Okay. 243,531,213 replaces the 244,148 under general non-departmental total on page 13.
Correct.
Okay, so
You want to make a
are
motion?
there any other, I just want to make sure, are there any other changes that you have?
Not that we're aware of.
Chief Mancini, are those numbers that have been pointed out?
Yes, Madam Chair, for the
You
record,
concur?
I appreciate the auditor and the treasurer going through and reviewing the work. Due to the pace of business, there were a number of multiple changes. I would just ask if the treasurer agrees that the net change to the proposed budget still remains at $371,388.
Yes, we didn't change the bottom line. So yes.
Then I am more than sufficiently satisfied, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we continue, I'd like to get a motion to amend 2A as specified by our
Making a motion.
Chief of Staff. Motion made by Councilwoman Castillo, seconded by
Second motion.
Councilman Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Discussion. Councilwoman Anthony, you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just have some questions because we didn't, I want to go back to the city council administration budget, and I would, we haven't had a discussion, about the changes in that department. So I'd like to ask, and I so appreciate Mr. Mancini and Mr. Lombardi for doing all the work they've done, but I just need to know where, specifically the change in services, the adding of the deputy clerk, and the council administration. We have a summary of those and why they're needed.
Okay. Hasn't been very many changes there, but I think I'd like to ask our Chief of Staff to explain them.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's very simple in the sense that we have taken on the Juvenile Hearing Board. As you know, we have a new ordinance. We're going to gear up the Juvenile Hearing Board, so the change in salary pertains to the Juvenile Hearing Board. Although it's only $11,000 difference, the position is about 50-something. But what we did was, since we don't have a communications person, we took $40,000 out of our salary line item and moved it to the service line item, and that's for an outside communications person until we can get up to speed to hire one.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I'd forgotten that we had taken that on. What about I also looked at, are we having a deputy chief of staff for policy and also a deputy chief of staff for operations? And why, I certainly know why we need the deputy chief of staff for policy, because I think that Sean Bouchard does a fabulous job, but I don't know how he keeps up with all of us. Why operations? And tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So that's just a technical change. We had 2 deputy chiefs of staff in operations. And so all I did was I renamed it. So now there's 1 and 1 instead of 2. So there's no dollar change. It's just a technical change.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
And who is the deputy chief of operations?
That's Mary Lee Dixon.
Oh, okay, great. All right, and then I just was wondering about why we need another clerk. Why do we need a deputy clerk in the city clerk's office? We have a huge staff. I'm just wondering why we need another.
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's should be cost neutral. It's a position that the clerk's office believed they needed. They were looking for a new position. That's the position they were requesting, and that's something that was supported.
Okay, I would ask for more details on that, because how many people do we have in the clerk's office right now?
I don't believe we'd be adding anybody to the clerk's office.
Okay, then who's switching around in there then? I just would like some more explanation as to what that is.
Sure. Do you want, I mean.
Well, I mean, maybe you could get back to me. I mean, it's not.
Sure, of course I will. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
that would just be great. Thank you so much. And I just also wanted to, I think I'm all right for a minute. Or is this the last opportunity? Oh, I do want to ask, and I'm not sure, this is not for Mr. Lombardi, but on the police academy. So we have a police academy that we've already budgeted for. And why the additional money for the police recruitment? I just don't understand why we need that right this minute. I don't know who can answer that.
Chief
Yeah,
Mancini?
sure. So,
I'll get you in a second, Councilman Narducci. Chief Mancini, if you could answer Councilwoman Anthony's question relative to recruitment allocation or allocation for police recruitment effort.
yes. So, while the police academy was included in the 22 budget, this is additional funding to widen the prospect of additional recruitments and to make certain that we are able to properly secure a well-diversified recruitment and talent pool. And sometimes the pool has to be wider because candidates do drop out, and this is meant to advertise in a greater number of publications as well as perhaps a wider area. So it was asked that we would include that additional funding for recruitment, both whether it be advertising or other means by which we could do that. And we accepted that request and we made that change.
And that would be a request from council leadership?
No, it was supported by the administration.
Okay, I think that money is not well spent. So I'm, we've been, been asked to do police reform. And I mean, I've supported the increases in salaries and, there's already a police academy, and it just seems like we're doing business as usual, turning a deaf ear to some police reform. So I think that is money that is not well spent. Okay, that's it for me right now.
Thank you. Thank
Maura.
you, Councilwoman. Councilman Narducci.
Madam Chair, just to respond a little bit. First of all, if anybody can think that we have enough police officers in the city of Providence, maybe they need to listen to the news better. The recruitment team coming up, and Larry or Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, we're also going to be losing more police officers within the next year.
Correct.
And out of the 50 that are going out of the academy now, there's still a chance that all 50 are not going to make the cut. And again, as far as, and my own opinion, as far as the clerk's office goes, I've been around quite a while now, and I think in the last so many years, we've seen some positions not be filled in the clerk's office. Again, Jimmy or Larry can answer that if I'm not mistaken. There was a few people that left or for whatever reasons and have not been filled in those positions. and to see what the clerks do on a daily basis, and they're taking on more and more committees, as you heard earlier. They're taking on more and more committees, even including para, which originally wasn't supposed to be the responsibility of the clerks, is now the responsibility of the clerks also. So my attitude is, we can't spend enough money on the police department. We have put, as you heard through the reports, we have put millions of dollars aside for programming, and even created a department now that the administration felt was needed to be, to help with some of the issues that we do have with some people that we have to deal with on a daily basis. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman LaFortune, let the record reflect, has joined us, and I believe she has a question. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you. And I do apologize if I'm a little muffled. I'm actually getting stitches. I hurt myself, so do apologize. I have to have my mask on. So I have a question in terms of, so just this past week alone, or these past few days, I received at this point, over 600 emails from community members asking to do some police reform. And so I completely agree with Councilwoman Anthony's comments. I mean, I'm very disappointed that we're not looking at allocating those funds, because I didn't hear you speak much about the crisis response and having that as a continued item. I didn't hear anything around some cultural competency or specific training around cultural competency. At this time, it just seems imprudent to, allocate those additional funds to the police department. And like Councilwoman Anthony said, we voted on the pay increases, which also will allow them to, the police officers to pay more into the pension. But I think this is at this point, we're not listening to the community. It's quite concerning. And before we allocate additional funds from the police department, we should think about how we can use those funds into preventative measures, and we can make real investment into the communities, which is what the community is asking.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Committee members? Councilman Taylor.
Okay, I'm going to go with a different view. As you've known for the last 3 years, I'll say I'll be voting against this budget because, again, the fire chief is in the budget. Yet again, for the past 7 years, we have budgeted a total of $1.2 million for a fire chief line item position. And at the end of it, after all these years, we do not have a fire chief, and we do not have $1.2 million to show for the line item budget. In my first budget, I brought this issue up, and I was going to vote against it, but the administration at that time promised to make a fire chief. Everybody can remember in November of that year, the commissioner sent the then president, Matos, a letter stating that if the city council would reinstate his $40,000 pay, that was reduced, then we would have a fire chief by the end of the year. As we know, this did not happen, and at that time I filed an ethics complaint against the commissioner, and 2 years later, I'm still waiting for a judgment from the city's ethics commission. A few months ago, I stated I would vote for the budget as there was only 2 months left, but in the next budget, I would not vote for the budget, and that's what we are now. Mayor Loiser acknowledged this year in April there are no plans to hire a fire chief in Providence, but his proposed budget still fully funds the $175,000 fire chief job. Public Safety Commissioner Stephen Perry is currently acting fire chief, which is also a violation of the Home Rule Charter, as it clearly states that no one can be in an acting capacity for longer than 90 days. And I've actually brought this up several times in the Finance Committee meetings of breaking the Home Rule Charter, only to have the administration look the other way. This year, I personally and other council finance members asked the commissioner on record if he was actively looking for a fire chief, and he stated no, he was not. And the mayor stated there are no plans to hire a fire chief. The same thing he has reiterated for the past 7 years. If not planning to hire a fire chief, then why is the line item in the budget? It should not be there. And I can think of the city could use $1.2 million a lot better to fix our schools, recreation centers, or even fixing sidewalks, as I'm on the claims and committee, and every month we're getting people claims for people falling and getting hurt throughout the city. So I think this money could be used a lot better. And if at some point in time we do get a fire chief, then we can put the funding back in. But if there's no chance of putting it in, I don't know why year after year we have this line item in there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Majority Leader Taylor. Councilwoman Anthony, you still have your hand raised. Would you like to ask another question or perhaps make a comment?
No, I'd like to ask another question if that's all right, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
So under the, I'm back to Mr. Lombardi. Thank you for your clarification. I'm just wondering what the contingency figure for the $40,000 for under city council members, what is that in the budget? So it's line item 55,980 on page 97 of our expenditure book or detail. And I'm just wondering what that figure is for. It was 16,042 in 2020, and then 21, 22, 23, it's 40,000. And I just wanted to know what that was.
I'd have to get back to you on that.
We'll do some research on that, Councilwoman.
The second question I have is back to the city clerk. We also have temporary salaries budgeted at 30,000 for 22. And if we're adding, I know you're talking about it's not, you're restructuring somehow in the clerk's office. I mean, are we paying $30,000 for temps in there? In addition to all the staff we have?
Would you like to respond?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, all right. If I could just ask that also, and then probably to Mr. Mancini. In the non-departmental general fund, we have a contingency 55,980, and I just can't remember what that's for, and I just wanted to ask.
What page is that, Madam Councilman?
105.
And what, may I ask you, what is the amount again?
Yes, it's third from the bottom. It's the contingency, and it's 1,090,000.
I believe that is a combination of summer learning, the amount of 580.
Okay.
And it could be some other associated program, but I will be happy to get back to you with that answer.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Not right now.
Committee members, you're all set, Councilwoman Anthony?
I am.
Thank you. If you could put your hand down, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, committee members, any further questions on this topic? Council members? You, Chief of Staff Lombardi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to state for the record that this budget process was very cooperative with the administration. I've said to them that this is one of the better times that we negotiated the budget. I just wanted to thank them and show that the administration and the council was working together to get this budget at least presented and hopefully passed.
Thank you very much. Madam Auditor, do you have any comments?
I do not. I can just reiterate what the Chief of Staff said. Other than that.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also thank the administration as well as our finance team. I know how hard you folks work together. There really has been no material change in the budget that was presented for public hearing. I think the savings of $371,000, actually $371,388 exactly, in the budget is reflective of the hard work that was put forth to try to make sure that our taxpayers' dollars were being spent efficiently and effectively. So I'd like to thank my committee for the hours that you spent working on this budget, deliberating. I think it's a sound budget, and again, it reflects a lot of hard work. With that, I'd like to ask for a motion to recommend approval of the budget articles as amended to the full council. May I have that motion?
Madam Chair, motion made to recommend full approval to the council floor.
Okay, motion has been
Second.
made by Councilman Narducci, seconded by Councilwoman Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No. Nay.
Okay, ayes have it, motion carries. The budget articles have been approved by the Finance Council and will be sent to the full council for a final vote. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Any further business before? Without any further business, I'd like a motion to Councilwoman Anthony.
Madam Chair.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because I know people are listening. There are some people in attendance tonight. Just so we're clear on the budget items. We also have to pass the APRA allocation to the general fund in the amount of $19,457,352 in order for this to be a balanced budget. Is that correct, Mr. Mancini?
That is correct.
Okay, so
That is correct. And
okay, so the
That is
APRA
correct.
appropriation ordinance, which has everything in addition to this particular $19,457,352, is also supposed to be passed in order for this budget to balance. So I just want to make sure people know what's happening. That ordinance has a lot more than what we need to balance our budget. And so I'm still recommending that we separate that out and not include that with a large grant of other funds. I'll say that for the record.
Thank you, Councilwoman Anthony. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Motion made by
Second.
Councilman Narducci, seconded by Councilwoman Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your hard work.